It was a soft, rainy morning when I married Daniel. The kind of morning where the world feels quiet, almost cautious. My white dress was simple, nothing extravagant, lace sleeves, a soft waistline. I remember how Daniel's eyes searched mine during our vows, trembling with both joy and fear. He was a widower, still carrying shadows in his heart. I knew that. And I thought love, patient, steady love, could help him heal. But the one thing I didn't prepare for was Lily. Lily was 16, with her mother's sharp cheekbones and Daniel's deep hazel eyes. She stood a few feet behind him during the ceremony, arms crossed, expression carved from stone. When I smiled at her, she looked away. At first, I told myself it was grief. Losing a mother so young must have left her fragile. And maybe my presence felt like an intrusion. I had no children of my own, and I wanted so badly to be the kind of stepmother who didn't replace, just added warmth. For a while, life tried to pretend it was normal. Daniel and I moved into his house, the same one he'd shared with his late wife, Emily. Every corner still whispered her name. The piano she used to play, the floral curtains she'd sewn, even the scent of her perfume. Faint but stubborn, like a ghost that refused to leave. I didn't want to erase her. I made sure of it. I kept the photos on the wall, her rose garden untouched. I thought Lily might appreciate that. Instead, she saw it as weakness. The first month, we barely spoke. I'd try, gentle questions at breakfast, little compliments. "That's a lovely drawing, Lily." Or "You make the best coffee," Daniel told me. Her replies were short. "Thanks." "Okay." "Whatever." Daniel noticed, of course. He'd sigh quietly when Lily left the table early, his fork paused midair. "Give her time," he'd whisper. "She's still hurting." So I waited. I baked her favorite cookies, helped with her art projects, and even framed one of her sketches in the hallway. A sketch of her mother, drawn in charcoal, delicate and fierce. When she saw it framed, she stared at it for a long time. I thought I saw her eyes soften. But then that same night, she slammed her door after dinner, muttering, "You're not my mom. Stop pretending you care." Her words sliced cleanly, not loud, but sharp enough to leave a mark. I told myself not to cry, not where she could hear. But later, in the quiet of our bedroom, I couldn't stop the tears. Daniel held me close, murmuring that it wasn't my fault. "She'll come around," he said. "She just needs to see who you really are." I wanted to believe him, so I kept trying. By the third month, small cracks began to show, ones I didn't notice at first. Daniel's colleagues at the hospital, he's a surgeon, would greet me with awkward smiles. "Oh, we heard about that little argument," one nurse said once, half laughing. I blinked, confused. "What argument?" She looked embarrassed. "Oh, maybe I shouldn't say. Just kids talk, you know?" That night, Daniel came home quieter than usual. He barely ate, scrolling through his phone. Finally, I asked, "What's wrong?" He hesitated, then sighed. "Lily told someone at school that he paused, "that you only married me for money." I froze. "What?" He rubbed the back of his neck, eyes tired. "She didn't mean harm. Teenagers say things. Please don't take it personally." But how could I not? I'd left my teaching job in another town to be with him. I'd given up my small apartment, my independence, everything, for love. And now the girl I was trying to love like my own was painting me as a gold digger. Still, I stayed quiet. I told myself, "She's grieving. She's scared. This isn't about you." But it was slowly becoming so. Lily's behavior grew colder. Not explosive, just calculated. The kind of quiet cruelty only teenage girls seem to master. She'd forget to tell me about family events, then act surprised when I didn't show. She'd roll her eyes when Daniel complimented my cooking, or slip her mother's old photo on his nightstand after I'd tidied it away. Once, I found her in our bedroom, holding one of my scarves. "Oh," she said, feigning innocence. "I thought it was Mom's." Then she smiled, that polite, perfect smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Daniel, bless him, stayed caught in the middle. He tried to mediate, but guilt tethered him to her. Every time I raised a concern, he'd defend her. "She didn't mean it like that. You're overthinking. She's just a kid." But she wasn't a kid anymore. She was a young woman, clever and observant, And she knew exactly how to twist the knife just deep enough that I'd question myself. One evening, I found a note in Daniel's office. Scribbled handwriting, no name, but the message was clear. She's changing you. Mom wouldn't recognize you anymore. My hands trembled as I folded the note back. I didn't know whether to cry or scream. Instead, I set the note on the desk, closed the door, and sat alone on the porch, watching rain fall in thin silver lines. The wind smelled like wet earth and lavender, Emily's favorite scent. Somewhere inside, a piano note echoed faintly from an old music box Lily had kept. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just fighting for Daniel's love. I was fighting against a ghost, and a daughter who wasn't ready to let her go. And I didn't know how much longer I could keep pretending it didn't hurt. It began with something small, almost forgettable. One morning, Daniel missed his surgery prep because his alarm didn't go off. He rushed out of bed, frustrated, muttering that he was sure he'd set it. Later that evening, he checked his phone and frowned. "It's strange," he said. "Someone turned off my early alarm." I looked up from the sink. "Maybe it was you by accident?" He shook his head. "No. It's set on my secondary app. The one only I use." He shrugged it off, kissed my cheek, and went to check on Lily. I didn't think much of it, until it started happening again. Little disruptions. Harmless on their own, but together, they painted something darker. Daniel's favorite mug shattered mysteriously one morning. The one his late wife had gifted him for his first Father's Day. The laundry machine overflowed because someone had added an entire bottle of detergent. And twice I found the thermostat cranked up in the middle of the night, to 32 degrees, even though no one admitted doing it. At first, I wondered if the house was simply tired. It was old, creaky, and carried too much history. But one evening, while tidying Lily's room, something I rarely did, but she'd been at a friend's house, I noticed something odd. Her laptop was open. The screen showed a draft email, unfinished, unsent. "Dad, I don't think she's being honest with you. She acts sweet, but I know she's lying about who she really is." My heart sank. The cursor blinked at me like a pulse. I didn't scroll or read more. I simply closed it, quietly, feeling my throat tighten. Because it wasn't just dislike anymore. It was a campaign, quiet, organized, deliberate. That night, I lay awake next to Daniel, staring at the ceiling. The house was silent except for the ticking clock and the distant hum of the refrigerator. He looked peaceful in his sleep, his hand lightly touching my arm. And all I could think was, he has no idea what's happening between us. Part of me wanted to confront Lily right then. Another part, the teacher, the nurturer in me, whispered, "No. She's hurting. Find the why before you fight the what." So I waited, observed, listened. 2 weeks later, my friend Nadia, one of the few people I'd met in town, invited me for coffee. We sat in the corner cafe, the one that smelled of cinnamon and vanilla. She leaned in, hesitant. "Listen, I don't know if I should tell you this," she began, stirring her cup nervously. "But I heard something about you at the community center." My stomach tightened. "What kind of something?" She hesitated. "That you and Daniel started seeing each other before his wife passed." I froze. My spoon slipped into the saucer with a sharp clink. "That's not true." "I know," Nadia said quickly. "I told them that. But someone's spreading it like it's gospel. Said it came from Lily herself." For a long moment, all I heard was the hiss of the espresso machine behind us, and my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I whispered, "She's telling people I broke up her family?" Nadia bit her lip. "I think she's angry, love. And anger, it makes people rewrite their memories." When I got home, the air in the house felt thick, like invisible smoke. Lily was in the kitchen, sketching something at the table. She looked up when I entered, her expression neutral, unreadable. "Hey," I said softly. "Can we talk for a second?" She didn't look up. "About what?" I took a slow breath. "About the things you've been saying. To your friends. To people in town." Her pencil paused mid-stroke. "What things?" "You know what things." My voice trembled despite my best efforts. "That I was with your father before your mother died." Finally she looked at me. Her eyes were icy, guarded. "Well, weren't you?" "No," I said firmly. "I met him months after. Your father was still grieving when we met. You know that. She gave a little shrug. People talk. Because you start it. Her lips tightened. Maybe I just want people to remember her. Everyone's already acting like she never existed. That's not true, I said, my voice breaking. I've done everything to keep her memory alive. I've respected her. By sleeping in her bed, she snapped suddenly. By touching her things? By pretending you're my mother? The words hit me like a slap. For a moment, neither of us moved. Her hands were trembling, but her face stayed hard. She was crying, though she'd never admit it. Lily, I whispered. I'm not here to replace her. I never wanted that. She stood, knocking over her chair, and stormed out before I could say another word. The door slammed. The house fell silent again. That night, Daniel came home to find me sitting on the porch. My hands were still shaking. He frowned. What happened? I told him everything. The rumors, the cafe, the confrontation. He rubbed his face, exhaustion written all over him. I'll talk to her. But his voice sounded flat, uncertain, like a man trapped between two loyalties. And in that moment, I realized something painful. No matter how kind, patient, or understanding I tried to be, I would always be the outsider in their story. Over the next few weeks, the tension deepened. Daniel and I began arguing, not loudly but often. He accused me of being too sensitive. I accused him of not standing up for me. Lily, meanwhile, kept her distance, polite but distant, as if we were housemates, not family. Then one morning, I found a crumpled note tucked under my windshield wiper. You should leave before you ruin what's left of their family. No name. Just handwriting. I instantly recognized that I sat in the driver's seat for a long time, staring at it. Tears blurred the edges of the paper. I wasn't angry anymore. I was exhausted. Because beneath all the cruelty, I could still see the child inside her. The one who lost her mother and never got the chance to say goodbye. And somehow, that made it hurt even more. But fate has a way of forcing people together in ways they never expect. Because 2 nights later, everything changed, in the span of a single, terrifying moment. It happened on a Friday evening, one of those heavy, gray evenings when the sky can't decide whether to cry or hold it in. Daniel was working late at the hospital, and Lily had gone to a friend's birthday dinner. I was home alone, folding laundry, when the phone buzzed. It was a message from a number I didn't recognize. You might want to check Facebook. Your stepdaughter's been busy. I frowned, unsure what to expect. But when I opened the link, my stomach dropped. There it was, a public post on a local town group, written by Lily Harris. The caption read, "My dad's new wife pretends she's a saint, but she's the reason my mom died heartbroken. People should know the truth before calling her a good person." Below it were comments, dozens of them. Some sympathetic, some cruel. She looks like the type. Poor Lily, she's so brave. I heard she was after his money. And then a photo. A photo of me smiling, hand in hand with Daniel, at a charity event. Lily had circled it with a red marker, captioned, "She moved in weeks after Mom's funeral. You decide what that means." I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. My throat burned. My hands shook. This wasn't teenage rebellion anymore. This was character assassination, public, humiliating, permanent. My first instinct was to delete the post or call Daniel. But my body felt frozen, caught between disbelief and heartbreak. How could she hate me this much? When Daniel finally came home around midnight, I was still sitting on the couch, the glow of my phone lighting the tears on my face. He saw me and stopped in the doorway. What happened? I handed him the phone. He scrolled in silence, his jaw tightening with every comment he read. When he reached the end, he exhaled hard, like the air had left his lungs. "She did this?" he asked quietly. I nodded. With her name and photo. For the first time, I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Not guilt, not exhaustion, but shame. He sat down beside me, head in his hands. "I'll take it down," he murmured. "I'll talk to her. Right now." But I put a hand on his arm. "No, Daniel. Not like this. She needs to understand what she's done, not just delete it because you told her to." He looked up, eyes rimmed red. "Then what do you want me to do?" "I don't know," I whispered. But she can't keep punishing me for loving you. The next morning, he called Lily into the living room. She walked in wearing headphones, pretending not to notice the tension. Her phone was in her hand. The same phone that had betrayed me. Daniel's voice was calm, but his face was pale. Lily, sit down. She hesitated, then sank onto the couch opposite us. He showed her the post. Explain this. She barely glanced at it. People should know who she is. Who she is, he repeated, disbelief cracking his voice. Is my wife, someone who's tried harder for you than anyone I've ever met. Lily crossed her arms, defensive. You don't see it, Dad. She's manipulative. She acts perfect, but she's trying to erase Mom. I swallowed, forcing my voice to stay steady. Lily, I've never tried to erase her. I couldn't even if I wanted to. She's everywhere in this house, in you, in him, in the things we keep because they mattered. Her lip trembled, but her tone stayed sharp. Then why did you move into her room? Why are you wearing her life like it's yours? Because your father asked me to, I said quietly. Because he was drowning, and someone had to help him remember how to live. Daniel's eyes filled. That's enough, he whispered. But Lily stood, shaking her head. You don't get it. You don't get what it's like to wake up every day and see a stranger where your mom used to be. Her voice cracked on that last word. Tears spilled down her cheeks. For a moment, my anger dissolved, replaced by something else, grief. Deep, aching grief. I said softly. You lost her. And I can't bring her back. But you don't have to lose your father too. She looked at me then, really looked, and I saw confusion flicker through the anger. But before I could say another word, she ran upstairs, slamming her door so hard the picture frames rattled. Later that day, Daniel took the post down himself. He called the school, the town page admin, even a lawyer friend to see what could be done. But the damage was done. The whispers spread faster than the truth ever could. At the grocery store, people avoided my eyes. At church, the whispers followed me down the aisle. One woman even muttered, "Poor Daniel, he moved on so fast." By the end of that week, I stopped going out altogether. Daniel kept apologizing, but guilt turned him quiet. We were like two ghosts sharing the same walls, connected by love, separated by silence. And Lily? She acted like nothing had happened. She went to school, laughed with friends, played piano at night. But sometimes, when she thought I wasn't looking, I'd catch her staring at me with something unreadable in her eyes. Not hatred exactly, but confusion. Maybe even regret. One night, I found her sitting outside on the porch steps. The air was cool, stars barely visible through the city haze. She didn't look at me when I sat beside her. "I talked to your dad," I said quietly. "He's not angry, just hurt." She sniffed. "He shouldn't be. He always chooses you." "No," I said. "He's trying to hold us both. But you keep pushing him away." She wrapped her arms around her knees. "You don't get it." "Then help me," I whispered. "Help me understand." There was a long silence. Then she said, voice trembling, "I saw him crying once. After Mom died. He was holding her photo, saying he couldn't live without her. And then a few months later, there you were, smiling, touching everything she left behind." It felt like betrayal. I felt something break open inside me. She wasn't cruel. She was hurt. So deeply hurt she didn't know where to put it. "Lily," I said softly, "he didn't stop loving her. He just found a way to keep breathing. That's all I ever wanted for him, for both of you." Her chin quivered. For the first time she didn't argue. She just nodded slightly, one small, fragile movement before whispering, "Good night," and going inside. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was the first crack of light through a long, dark wall. 2 weeks later, life seemed to settle, or at least pretend to, until the night of the storm. The night everything changed forever. The storm came suddenly, a restless, violent kind of rain that felt personal. It started just after dinner. The wind howled against the windows like an animal clawing to get in. Daniel was on a night shift at the hospital again, leaving just me and Lily at home. We'd barely spoken in days, but the silence felt softer now. Not cold, just tired. I made tea, offered her some. She shook her head and disappeared upstairs with her phone. I tried to distract myself with a book, but the storm made it impossible to focus. The thunder rolled so close it rattled the frames on the wall. Around 9 p.m., the power flickered, then died completely. The house went dark. I lit a candle and called out, "Lily?" No answer. Only the wind and the faint creak of the house settling. I assumed she was in her room, probably scrolling under the blanket with her flashlight on. But then from upstairs came the faint sound of a window slamming open, and a scream. "Lily!" I dropped the candle and ran. Her room was empty. The curtains flapped wildly in the open window, rain pouring in. Panic seized my chest. I leaned out into the storm, and there she was, down by the edge of the driveway, in her hoodie and jeans, trying to chase after something. A dog, a small golden retriever, was caught near the flooded ditch. The neighbor's pet. It must have escaped during the thunder. Lily was wading in, trying to grab it, her sneakers sinking into the mud. "Lily, stop. It's too deep." I screamed. The wind drowned out my words. Without thinking, I ran outside barefoot, the cold mud biting my feet. The rain slapped against my face, blinding me. I could barely see her through the sheets of water. She was almost at the edge now, reaching for the terrified animal. The ground was slippery, unstable. I shouted again, but then in one horrible instant, I saw her foot slide. She screamed as she fell, straight into the ditch, the current dragging her down. "Lily!" I ran, heart pounding so hard I could hear it echo. The ditch wasn't deep, maybe 4 feet, but the rain had turned it into a raging torrent. I jumped in without thinking. The shock of the cold hit me like a wall. She was flailing, gasping, her arms clawing at the muddy water. I grabbed her wrist and pulled, but the current fought me. My foot slipped, and for a second, I went under too. Everything blurred. Water, darkness, fear. "Hold on." I choked, coughing up rainwater. "Don't let go." She was crying, terrified, her fingers digging into my arm. I planted my foot against a rock, used every ounce of strength to push us toward the bank. The mud gave way beneath us, but somehow, I managed to drag her up. We collapsed in the wet grass, both shaking uncontrollably. The dog had escaped, barking somewhere in the distance. I turned her face toward me, pale, drenched, eyes wide. "You okay?" I gasped, brushing her hair from her forehead. She was crying, but she nodded. "I thought I could get him. I didn't." "It's okay," I whispered. "You're safe." Then just as the adrenaline began to fade, pain shot through my ankle. I looked down, blood mixed with mud. Somewhere in the scramble, I'd stepped on a jagged piece of metal. I could feel it throbbing, warm blood soaking through the rain. Lily's eyes widened. "You're bleeding, oh my God." "Shoo," I said, wincing. "It's fine." But it wasn't fine. The world tilted for a moment, black spots dancing at the edges of my vision. I must have lost more blood than I thought. "Go call your dad," I said, voice weak. "Tell him to come home. Now." She hesitated, then scrambled up, slipping as she ran toward the house. I remember lying there, staring at the storm. The rain hit my face, cold and relentless. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel anger or pain. Just peace. Because no matter what she had said or done, I had done what any mother, real or step, would do. I had protected her, even if she'd never love me for it. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. The beeping machines, the sterile air, all too familiar. My ankle was bandaged, and 4 in my arm. Daniel was beside me, asleep in the chair, his hand wrapped around mine. For a moment, I thought it had all been a dream. Then I saw Lily, sitting quietly by the window, knees drawn up to her chest, her eyes red and swollen. When she noticed I was awake, she froze. I gave her a tired smile. "Hey." Her lips quivered. She stood, walked over slowly, and then, without a word, took my hand. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Her voice cracked on the last word. "I'm so sorry." Tears welled in my eyes. "It's okay, sweetheart." She shook her head fiercely. "No, it's not. I was horrible to you. I said awful things, and you still saved me." Her words hit me harder than the pain in my leg. I squeezed her hand. "That's what love does, Lily. It doesn't keep score." She burst into quiet sobs, hiding her face against my shoulder. I held her, gently, feeling the storm inside both of us finally start to quiet. When Daniel woke up, he found us like that, holding each other, both crying, both finally soft. He didn't say a word. He just sat on the edge of the bed, placed his hand over ours, and for the first time in what felt like forever, our family, broken, bruised, but still breathing, felt whole again. The days that followed were quieter, healing in every sense of the word. Lily deleted every post, every rumor. She apologized to people publicly, even at school. I made mistakes, she said. I was hurting. But that doesn't excuse what I did. The courage it took, I couldn't help but feel proud. And for the first time when she said, "Mom, can I make you tea?" I didn't correct her. Because I finally understood. She wasn't replacing her mother. She was learning to let another love live beside that memory. The storm had passed, but its echoes lingered, in the creaking trees, the muddy yard, the faint smell of wet earth that clung to the house for days. Daniel took a week off work to stay home with us, hovering like a guardian shadow. Every morning, I'd wake to find him making breakfast, humming softly, an old habit he'd forgotten since Emily's passing. And Lily, well, she was different. Not perfect, not suddenly angelic, but different in the way people are when they've seen the edge of something and stepped back from it. She was quieter, thoughtful. The walls she'd built between us had cracks now, and through them, I could finally glimpse the tender heart she'd been hiding. The first time we went out together after the hospital, I could feel the eyes on us. At the grocery store, at church, at the coffee shop. The same people who'd once whispered behind my back now pretended to smile politely. One woman even said, "We were so worried about Lily when we heard what happened. You must have been terrified." Her tone was careful, guilt wrapped in small talk. I simply nodded and said, "Yes. But she's safe now. That's all that matters." Lily watched me closely, realizing what I was doing. Choosing grace over bitterness. Later in the car, she said softly, "You didn't have to be so nice to her. After everything they said about you." I smiled, looking out the window. Kindness costs less than revenge, sweetheart. And it lasts longer. She was quiet for a moment, then whispered, "I wish I'd learned that sooner." A few days later, the school called. The principal wanted to meet with us about Lily's social media post. Daniel and I sat side by side in the office, while Lily fidgeted with the strap of her backpack, her eyes fixed on the floor. The principal, a kind woman named Mrs. Clark, spoke gently. "Lily, what you wrote hurt someone deeply. But the way you've taken responsibility since then, that matters too." Lily's voice was small. I didn't mean for it to go that far. Mrs. Clark nodded. "I believe you. The internet has a way of turning small sparks into wildfires. But the only way to put it out is to face the truth, which you've done." Afterward, as we walked out, Lily turned to me. "I really am sorry, you know." "I know," I said softly. "And I forgive you." She hesitated, then smiled. Not her usual guarded smirk, but a real, gentle one. "I'll make it up to you. Somehow. You already are." That weekend, the town hosted a small community fundraiser. The same event Daniel and I had attended in the photo Lily once used to shame me online. It felt symbolic, returning there together. Daniel insisted we go. "Let them see," he said. "The truth doesn't need defending. It just needs time to stand tall again." We arrived just before sunset. The hall buzzed with chatter, the scent of baked pies and coffee filling the air. A few people stopped to greet us, cautiously at first. But as the evening went on, warmth replaced awkwardness. At one point, Lily stood up during the open mic segment. My heart skipped a beat. She walked to the stage, clutching the microphone with trembling hands. "Hi," she began, her voice echoing softly through the room. "Most of you know me as Daniel Harris's daughter. And some of you probably remember what I said online a while back." The room went still. Even Daniel froze. She took a shaky breath. "I said things that weren't true. I was angry, and I wanted someone to blame for something I didn't understand. Losing my mom." Her eyes darted toward me. "But the woman I blamed, she didn't deserve it. She saved me, not just from the storm, but from myself." A murmur swept through the crowd. I felt my throat tighten. "She's not replacing my mom," Lily continued, her voice steadying. She's just someone who refused to stop loving me, even when I gave her every reason to. For a moment, no one spoke. Then one by one, people began to clap. Some stood. A few even wiped tears from their eyes. Daniel reached for my hand under the table, squeezing it tightly. When Lily stepped down from the stage, she came straight to us and wrapped her arms around both of us at once. And in that single wordless moment, all the pain, all the misunderstanding, all the whispered cruelty, felt like it finally began to fade. In the weeks that followed, something miraculous happened. The rumors stopped. The pitying looks turned to genuine smiles. People began to see us not as the scandal, but as the family that survived it. Lily even started volunteering at the animal shelter. The same one that had rescued the dog from the storm. She said it helped her make things right. One afternoon, as we drove home from the shelter, she glanced at me with a shy smile. "You know," she said, "Dad told me you almost lost a lot of blood that night." I chuckled softly. "He exaggerates. He said you risked your life for me." "I just did what any mother would do." She looked out the window, her voice quiet. "I think Mom would have liked you." The words caught me off guard. I blinked fast, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I hope so," I said. "Because I like her too. I see her in you every day." She smiled, turning her face to the sunlight that poured through the car window. And for the first time since I'd entered her life, I felt that strange, fragile bridge between past and present finally hold steady, strong enough for both of us to stand on. That night, after dinner, Daniel took out his old photo album, the one he hadn't touched in years. We sat together on the couch as he turned each page slowly, reverently. There was Emily, laughing, radiant, alive. There was Daniel, young and nervous, holding baby Lily in his arms. And then at the end of the album, he'd added a new photo, me and Lily at the fundraiser. Our arms wrapped around each other, both smiling with wet eyes. Daniel's voice broke the silence. "She'd be proud," he said, "of both of you." Lily leaned her head against his shoulder, then reached over to hold my hand. In that quiet, golden moment, the house didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt home. But as Auntie May always says, healing doesn't happen in grand gestures. It happens in the small, everyday acts of grace that remind us who we still are, even after the storm. And ours wasn't over yet. Because love, real love, doesn't end with forgiveness, it begins there. It's been 8 months since the accident. The seasons have changed, and so have we. Our house feels different now. The air isn't heavy anymore. It smells of cinnamon and laundry detergent instead of suspicion and silence. The same walls that once echoed with slammed doors and cold dinners now carry laughter, soft, hesitant at first, then whole. Lily still walks with a faint limp. The doctors say it'll fade with time, but I think the limp suits her. It's a reminder of where she's been and what she's survived. Some scars don't need to disappear. They need to be seen. That morning, I found her in the kitchen before school. She was making pancakes, my recipe. The same one she once called too dry. She flipped one, clumsy but proud, and said, without looking up, "Can you pass me the vanilla, Mom?" The word hit me like sunlight through a dusty window. Mom. Not Margaret. Not her. Not my dad's wife. Just Mom. I didn't say anything at first. I just watched her pour the batter. Her hair tied up the same way I used to wear mine when I was her age. There was a time I couldn't imagine hearing that word from her lips without bitterness. Now it felt like a prayer answered in silence. After breakfast, Daniel kissed the top of my head as he left for work. A small gesture, but one I hadn't felt in a long time. We'd found our rhythm again, but slower, softer. We'd both learned what silence could cost, and what forgiveness could save. He still visits Emma's grave once a month. Lily goes too sometimes. The first time she asked me to join, I hesitated, afraid she'd feel I was intruding on something sacred. But when we went together, she held my hand. At the cemetery, she placed 2 flowers, one for her mother, one for me. "She would have liked you," she whispered. "You're both stubborn and kind. The worst combination." We laughed. But I could see her eyes shimmer with the truth beneath it. For the first time, I didn't feel like a replacement. I felt like family. A few weeks later, I was invited to her school event, a debate competition. She'd always been a fierce speaker, quick to challenge every word I said. That day, as she stood on stage, her voice was calm, steady, confident. The topic was, can forgiveness change people? When it was her turn, she paused, looked right at me in the audience and said, sometimes forgiveness doesn't change the past. It changes the people who survive it. Her words carried the weight of our entire story. The audience applauded, but I could barely hear them. I was too busy holding back tears. That night, as we walked home, she slipped her arm through mine. Thank you, she said softly, for not giving up on me. Even when I gave you every reason to. I didn't answer. I just squeezed her hand. Because sometimes love isn't loud. It's patient. And sometimes saving someone's life doesn't happen on the side of a road. It happens quietly, every day after, when you choose to love them again. Now, when I stand by the window and watch her leave for school, I see not the angry teenager who once tried to destroy my marriage, but a girl learning to heal. And in her healing, I've healed too. People often ask me how I forgave her so easily. The truth is I didn't. It wasn't easy at all. It took time and silence, and moments where I thought I couldn't do it anymore. But forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a slow sunrise after a long night. And when it finally breaks through, you realize you've been holding your breath for years. Now I can finally breathe.